Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, it's March. We're going to have March Madness, St. Patrick's Day, all kinds of crazy stuff happening this month. So it's time to get healthy. You know, we had to recover in January and February. And then by March, a lot of us start letting down a little bit and forget about our New Year's resolution. So Simply Snacking is here to help you. They're sponsoring the podcast. They're bringing all this great content to you. So please enjoy Simply Snacking. If you haven't tried it yet, go try it. You won't be disappointed. They have great chicken and beef flavors, and there's lower carb options, a little bit higher carb options, but I would highly recommend them. It's a great emergency go-to, and they're good people. So give them your business. They're a nice company. They're doing good things. They're raising the animals responsibly and treating them nicely. So enjoy some chicken and beef and enjoy Simply Snacking. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. This is someone I'm really excited, has way more three doctorate degrees, I think, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Was Tro
only one?
Just one?
Just
okay,
one.
I'll start over. Tro said three.
He said three.
Okay, let's start over. I'll start over on that.
Okay, I only have one.
Okay, Jack, we're going to restart here because we got carried away here already. Gosh. Hello and welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. This is a doc that I'm really excited to have on. This is someone we just had on the Low Carb MD, my big podcast. But she's something. I've had the great fortune of meeting her at several low carb conferences. She's around talking to everyone, and she has an amazing story, and I really wanted to get her story out. Dr. JoAnn McManamy.
Well, close. McManamy.
Gosh, darn it, McManamy. I practice it too. Shoot. So I'm human, everyone. So it's so great having you. Yeah, we butchered your name every time. It's just going to be a tradition from here on out.
It's okay with
Doc, thanks for joining me. And, I think people really need to hear your story. Tell people your story.
Well, my story started with never really liking myself. And what happened is I was seeking approval. Since I didn't like myself, I really wanted other people to like and approve of me and be valuable. But I heard a lot of negative messages when I was growing up, like, in order to, one example, in order to eat, I had to step on the scale in front of my brothers, my mother and father. It was my father that did this. And I couldn't eat dinner unless I weighed under a certain expectation that my father had, which was always rather low. And so there were many nights that I didn't get to eat dinner. And everybody else did because they didn't get fat. My brothers weren't fat. My mother was not fat. And my father was not fat. And I weighed 110. So I got a lot of negative messages around my weight and around what it was like to be valuable. And that to me was beauty and it was weight. So I gave away my power. And even though I had some successes growing up, when I went home at night, I was alone and I had nobody to help me with my eating, give me the correct information about what I should be eating, or give me any correct information. I was in a real negative feedback loop. And in fact, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. I wore all black until I was about 60. And I just couldn't see me. I couldn't face reality. And then what shifted is I focused on my health rather than my weight. And that's what started to turn the ship around and helped me like myself and choose health. And that was 10 years ago. And I'm 75 now. So I went up to 65 not liking myself. I
Yeah,
don't want anybody to do that.
yeah, and that's a hard thing. And I think, it's hard because I think a lot of people, we see our kids struggling with weight. We see it's figuring out how do you handle it the right way? How do you not crush someone's spirit while you're concerned about their health? And what could they have done differently, you think? Instead of weighing you and saying you're not eating tonight and forcing this on you, how do you think that like if it was your child who was having the same struggles you were having, how would you handle that differently, knowing what you know now?
Well, first, I would get the advice of somebody who knew, like a psychologist, and I would approach a psychologist and then approach my child. I would not ever do the shaming in the blaming. It's more shaming, which is far more hideous. I would not shame that person because, I could get all the good grades in school, but that just didn't cut it with my parents. And I really, I'd say, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to lose all this weight. And then they'd laugh at me and because they knew it would last 2 weeks with me. And then I'd go off eating because I was always hungry. You have no willpower, I kept hearing that. And, I didn't even know what willpower was when I was 7.
Yeah, and
And
obviously, and you prove this stereotype is incorrect in that you go on to get a doctorate degree, even though you have poor self-esteem, you're struggling, you never think you match up, but you were driven in a way to achieve a lot
I,
intellectually.
I mean, I was driven to achieve. I got a master's degree in counseling and an MBA and numerous fellowships and got to teach at Harvard for 2 years. And that's when my father backed off on me when I said, I want you to come see me teach at Harvard. And I took him for dinner at the Harvard Faculty Club. I told him I was going to call on him 3 times and he'd better damn well be prepared. And I heard nothing after that. He was proud of me. And that was shortly before he died.
Did he tell you he was proud of you finally?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's something, I mean, that's something when you live under the conditions you were under and being told you're worthless and not, but it's terrible. It's not just you as a person that you have to achieve. And a lot of people feel like they have to be the best football player. I've seen it all. I've seen
Yeah.
people self-destruct because they had to be successful because everyone in their family, a doctor or an attorney or high achieving, and then they're doing something that they don't feel that they feel called to do, not something that everyone else esteems maybe.
Well, you know what? I really always felt called to be a great professor, a teacher. And that was a very fulfilling career. And I don't regret at all that because up until the time I retired, I knew I made a difference. I knew I was good. I got a lot of teaching awards. I did pick a good career for myself. That was a wonderful choice. But, teachers are a dime a dozen, I heard in my family. And then all of a sudden I started questioning it. And as I think I said on your other podcast, what if they were wrong was the question. What if they were wrong? And at that point I was going to life coaching school. So I learned a lot about the questions I needed to ask myself. I learned a lot about challenging my assumptions. And you'd think I'd know this, but I didn't. And I then embraced it. And I just started feeling a little bit of power at 65. So that's when I really shifted. And at that point, I had a major heart event. And so do I want to live or do I want to die? And I
Yeah,
chose to live and live it differently.
and so people who haven't listened to the other podcast, in a nutshell, you're 65, you have
Mhm.
cardiac stuff, you go and tell them what happened there and what your weight was like at that point.
Well, my weight was about 230 at that point. I had lost 50 pounds in the previous 10 years, but it was 230 when I moved to Florida. And 4 months after I moved to Florida, I found myself in the ER, the emergency room of a regional hospital. And fortunately, I got the correct diagnosis. they put me in the cardiac waiting room for 2 days before I was moved to the cardiac floor. And they determined I had to have a new valve, aortic valve, and a triple bypass. And at that point, for the first time in my life, I surrendered to it. And there's the spiritual part of this whole thing is, I just said, you've got to stop trying to control everything in your life. There is a bigger force that's operating here. And I just surrendered to it. And not being a religious person, but a spiritual person, I let every clergy person that was praying over people into the room. And I said, the more people who have a plug into upstairs, the better. And then I went for surgery the next day, and I survived.
How about heading into surgery? Did you have like being an intellect and everything? Were you thinking, I could die on the table, this could happen? I mean, did you reflect at that point on what really matters in life and those kind of things? Did that cross your mind, or was it just a whirlwind?
It was a whirlwind. I didn't have enough time to think about it. The surgeon came in 2 days before the surgery, and he looked like a really good guy. He had a great CV, and he was very nice, and he was very religious. He said, I like to pray every time. I don't know what Christian religion he was, but I said, you go for it. And I understand later, if you say no, he doesn't do the surgery, but I went with it. So,
Wow.
and he looked like Bruce Willis. So, I mean, he was a nice guy. And so I had the surgery. I felt very confident with him. My daughter and son-in-law were waiting for me through the whole day. And I came through it, and I felt immediately better in ICU when I asked for some ice chips. I just said, okay, you've got a lease on life now. Now live it, really live it.
And so then you change your lifestyle. You start you reaching out. You're finding, firing doctors who weren't nice to you, and picking up doctors who would listen to you. And so you kind of reestablished who you are, and made steps to get healthier.
I really never liked a lot of doctors because maybe this is a projection of mine, because of their arrogance. And I told one, I had doctor in front of my name before you were born, Sonny. And that was effective because he was very young and he changed his attitude. But a lot of them were just, you don't need that test. You don't need this. You don't need that. So I really started refining. And once I knew I could get better doctors, they came. It's almost like I set an intention and got out of my own way. Didn't say, well, they have to have these criteria, these criteria. No, they just, miraculously appear. And I'm very happy now with that. So got that with the new information about what I should do, challenged a lot of the information, got better information. It's just a process that I chose to live. And what really helps me along with that is when I know more, I get better. And it's almost eerie. And so my life turned around when I focused on health rather than weight.
And I think that is such a huge topic, because so many people that come to me, it's the weight is their number one issue. Go, look, you put on 5 pounds of muscle. So if 5 pounds more on the scale, you should be happy about that. If it's muscle mass, or if you're doing, this whole, I think the biggest problem is that people just give up too quickly. They go, okay, I tried this for 2 weeks. It's not better. I'm going back to what I was doing. And they just give up so quickly. And what you did is tell people how much weight you lost in your whole journey. From your heaviest, sounds like, was around 280 or so, right?
280, and I'm about to break into the 140s. I'm 150 exactly.
That is, you lost half yourself and you've gained a lot.
And I gained a life.
My goodness.
I gained a life, and I'm twice, maybe 10 times the woman I was before. Yeah, because life is fun now. life has turned into looking in the mirror, facing a lot of my demons, and that was scary. And now I'm out of all my black clothes. I wear colors and wear a size 10 from a 4X. And yeah, life is so much better because I've chosen to be healthy and cured a lot of ailments along the way. And I've got a good 25 more years ahead of me. Tro will earn his money for the next 25 years.
Yeah,
And
he's got a vested interest to keep you around. I'm just jealous
yeah,
he's
yeah.
your doc and not me, but you know, that's the way it goes. But you know, having someone like you obviously is a dream for him also, to have a patient who's invested in their health, that wants to ask questions that will challenge us and say, hey,
Yeah.
keep us on our toes. Because arrogance has, I'm telling you, you know, the amazing thing to me is the more I practice medicine, the less arrogant I can be, because there's some things that are out of our control, no matter how well we do and how much we try to reach people. And there's some people we just can't reach. But I think if you're arrogant, then it really makes it that much harder.
It's having a closed mind, and that's insecurity on the doctor's part. That's fear on the doctor's part. They don't want to be, some don't want to be challenged. I mean, I find doctors so much better than when I was younger, you know.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me because, you know, paternalism was the way of medicine in the past. You know, when I was a new generation back then, that was like saying, okay, we're partners with the patient. And now it seems like they're going back to paternalism again. You know, some of the younger doctors saying, I know better than you do. You know, this is what the guideline says. I don't care what you're doing. It's not good for you, you know, and it's a tough one. It's a
And when a
tough one. We
woman
need a
does
balance.
paternalism, it's absolutely reprehensible.
Yeah, and you know, the great thing you said that really stuck with me is, what happens if they're wrong about me, right? And it was the same thing. I had to go through that when I started the low carb, when I started talking about faith, when I started talking about lifestyle, and all these standard doctors would look at me like, this guy's crazy. He thinks diet can have an effect on health. He thinks that insulin's doing these things. And so you have to weather the storm sometimes in life and say, okay, I see the results, and sooner or later you'll see it, but you're not. This paradigm shift is so challenging in medicine, especially because everything just gets passed down from generation to generation, saying this is how it's done. That's it. No, you can't look and say, well, it's not working, guys. You know, and in your case, look, you know, I know for years and years they said you have to diet and watch your diet and exercise more. That's the way out. And they didn't give you any other options over all this time as you progressed and got worse and worse with health.
Yeah, one of my Boston doctors even said, the earth is 3/4 water, so you should be having 3/4 vegetables because they have water. And, you know, what? What? I left her quickly. But yeah, it's just the lies doctors told me. I just, you know, love Ken Berry's book and what I learned about that. So I started, you know, I just started challenging and challenging, not quite as nicely as Ken Berry would, but yeah, I challenged, and I have some keepers now, real keepers, and very lucky, especially
Yeah, and I think when you
my
connect,
cardiologist.
that's how it should be. You should connect with your doctor and feel like they care about you, and they're willing to listen, willing to help you. And I think a lot of people just don't have that. And I think
Yeah,
the other big thing about your story that strikes me is, you were 65 when you started making these big changes. So many people are in their 50s saying, okay, this is it. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to have poor memory. And they say this is part of getting old. Well, I have people in their 90s who are sharp as a tack and exercising daily.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's what if you believe that's going to happen to you, you know, it probably will. I don't believe that. I'm going to be young. I'm going to live, and then I'm going to drop dead. It's just not going to be a suffering. It's ease, ease. So I'll do the best I can, taking care of my heart, and
So
yeah,
what kept you going? Like at those times, there had to be times when you said, I'm going to give up. This is too hard. I'm going to go back to my old way. You know, there's comfort in eating and all these things. How did you keep on track instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go back to my old ways? Because a lot of us try something and we go back to what we were doing, you know, just like, you know, a lot of people's coping mechanism is, okay, I'm not going to yell anymore. Then they get it, they lose it and start yelling again, right? So all these things of how did you stay the
And
course?
I didn't, there is no perfection in this. When I got out of the hospital at age 65, I didn't really kick into a good diet, but I realized I had to get some weight off. I cut out the things I knew would not feed me. That meant I gave up desserts back then, um, candy, all of those things. I gave that up, and that was my first step. And I started looking at the research, and my daughter and son-in-law are very well informed. So we would have some good nutrition talks, and um, I realized, animal proteins were really good. And I just didn't eat a lot of them at that point. I didn't know anything about keto, but I did know low carb. And, I got down to the low 200s. Took me a couple of years to do that. So I was bordering around 206 pounds, and I held that for a couple of years. And then came 2017. And I went to a chiropractor who guaranteed to get rid of my diabetes and get me off all medications. At that time, I was taking uh, metformin and glipizide. And 3 months I was off it and weighed 175, 3 months.
Yeah, and I love that point because it's
Yeah.
so important when we get back to arrogance. You know, Tro and I had a couple of chiropractors on, and people would attack us, say, "How dare they? They're not doctors. They're chiropractors. They're different." But these guys back 10 years ago for me were saying, "Hey, we'll take you off insulin and diabetes medicine." I thought these guys are crazy. They're full of it. It's a scam. But then when I started realizing, oh my goodness, they're talking about lifestyle. They're talking about sleep and stress and all these other things that us Western guys say, here's a pill for it, here's a pill, and not make you change what you're doing, or try to talk about the effects of stress or not sleeping, all these big pillars of health that we just ignore and we think is hocus pocus, but the data is there and the science is there.
Yeah, and I know my naturopath chiropractor, you know, people would say he's crazy, and he wasn't. And I
And
went over
he reached you and he got you on board.
and I just went over to see him on Thursday, which was my birthday and his birthday, to wish him happy 65. And he and his wife wished me happy 75. Bought my B vitamins and went off. And yeah, he's a very special man in the villages, and people know who he is. So
Yeah, that's great. Just to have someone who cares and is educated and saying, okay, look, what you're doing is not working. We have to change something, and changing what we have to be is be able to change variables. Us primary care docs or frontline docs or whatever you want to call us, we have to observe and say, okay, this isn't working. After a while, I knew it wasn't working for me, and so I had to make a change. And so, what's not working for my patients, I want to get them on a better track. And when we see people like you, it's so rewarding because we know where you were going 10 years ago. Now you change the entire trajectory. Plus, not only that, it's the self-esteem and the self-confidence and all these things that you've obtained through this, and mental clarity and all these other things that we talked about on our other podcast.
my God, my life is so different. I used to have a dream, Brian, that I had to escape from under the water through a tunnel. And I was so fat, I'd get stuck in the tunnel and die. And I don't have those dreams anymore because I know I can swim through. And that was very distressing for me. But then I noticed, they haven't been around for about 5 years now. And so I've got much better dreams. Not all of, some of them are nightmares, but they're better nightmares. And just, there's so much. My sleep is better. I'm nicer because I'm more patient. My cognition is better. I'm doing complex things and getting through it. I still have some words that I pull up, but I guess that's normal for my age. I don't like it, but we'll work on that. And I exercise. I'll be starting exercising next week because my boot comes off next week from my broken foot. So I'm really looking forward to that. And at the end of that, in 3 weeks, I'm taking my first trip outside of the country in 2 years. I'm going to London. I'm going to fly and meet up with some of the low carb folks, specifically Dan Grief and Jackie Fletcher up in Cambridge. So have lunch with them, meet Dan and see his bakery, and just get to know Jackie. So
Yeah, I was on their podcast. We're having them on mine also because on Low Carb MD, and they're great people and they're doing good things to help people on the other side of the pond, and that's exciting. And there's great people I know at that conference, like Dr. Unwin, the
yeah,
two Dr. Unwins, I think. They're great people, and yeah, I'm jealous. That's one of my bucket list items is to walk through the countryside with him one of these days and just talk about life and what matters.
set the intention and get out of your own way. It will happen.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that goes back to what you were saying is like, what happens if they're wrong about me? For people who don't know, Dr. Unwin's an older doc in England and in a small town, and he was seeing all of his patients get sicker and worse, and he was burned out and was going to retire a while back, and maybe 10 years now.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. He was done. He was tired of seeing people die and get sick and physician burnout and all these things. And then one of his patients changed her lifestyle, and she came in and lost over 100 pounds. She reversed her diabetes, and she said, I stopped listening to you because you gave me bad advice. And he was using the ADA's guidelines. She said, I just started eating like my mom and my grandma, and they were all healthy and they lived till they were old, and they were eating eggs and cheese and meat and different things like that from the low carb standpoint. So he started changing what he was doing because he listened. And then all of a sudden he saw his patients getting better. And then all the medical societies in England wanted to come after him because they said he was dangerous and was going to kill people while his patients are all getting better and coming off medications and reversing their hypertension and diabetes and all that. So he gave a lot of respectability to the low carb movement, and he's just one of the most decent, nice people on earth too. And he just wants to help people. So, I think these are things, and he had to go through that phase of what happens if everyone's wrong, and they were wrong about him for sure.
Yeah. So, he is inspirational. I've listened to many podcasts of a lot of podcasts that have interviewed him. Hope to meet him when I go back in May. So
yeah, he's a fan. They're fantastic. And also, in going back to that, what advice would you give to that person who's laying in bed right now with IVs in and they're sick and they've had, a lot of health problems and they've kind of given up on themselves? What would you tell them, that person?
the first thing I would do is just, I would figure out what they thought they could do as a first step, and I would listen. And if they needed a little prompting, I would say, well, how are you sleeping? How is your stress? And get a metric. Tell me about your diet and tell me about your activity. And I would figure out by more questioning as to, what's one place in any one of those pillars that you could start, and listen to them and start them there. Because if they chose it, they're probably choosing something they might be able to feel success in. And that's where you start. And a lot of positive talk. If I were their life coach or their health coach, I would ask them ideally what their goal was. And if it's a small goal, let's just start there. They have to start where they want and something they think they really can do, that they could take a risk and make that happen for them. It's never,
and then success builds on success, right? Once you start
always
changing something.
build on success, and just guide them. I think people need help when they're first starting, and I just look around, and it's got to be good help, or it's got to be somebody that's not going to shame them. It's a positive help. Things to do. Like when I started, I couldn't even walk around the block. And I started walking with these women at where I live. And all of a sudden around the block, we did that for a while. And then I started making a little more until I was up to 2 miles And I would do that in the morning and then take another walk in the afternoon, or swim or do something else to get my steps in or whatever I'm doing. And just, I was a couch potato. And now I walk all over. And again, starting when that boot comes off next week. So,
And how did you keep your motivation during this whole process when
I felt better.
you felt better?
Simply, you feel better. And feeling better is so motivating. I felt better when I walked. I feel better when I eat clean food. I feel better when I sleep correctly. And in stress, well, not working does a lot for your stress level. And that's the luxury of being older. But it's also the small things don't get to me like they used to.
You
And
start realizing it
yeah,
doesn't really matter in the scheme of things,
doesn't
right?
really matter. One of my friends, Lisa, said to me, "JoAnn, does this really matter?" We were fighting over something. We're arguing over something. And I started laughing. I said, "No, it doesn't matter at all." And we just started laughing and laughing and laughing. And that taught me a lot that day. That was a powerful conversation I had. And yeah, so it just keeps building momentum. And I would never want to go back. I was unconscious for the first 65 years. I'm conscious now. I see colors. I look in the mirror. Uh, I'm not scared of myself. And it's a lot easier. And that is so motivating. It's starting one thing, doing one thing. You notice a difference and you notice it immediately. You just notice it immediately.
And then you build on that, and then you build on that, and you keep going.
Build on that. But it's important to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter where you start.
I'll tell you, from my perspective as a doc, because I'm trying to figure this stuff out, right? Because I have patients, I can tell who's going to not have success generally, because it's the highly stressed middle-aged female who weighs herself 10 times a day, to highly, like, if I don't lose 10 pounds a week, I'm quitting, I'm a failure. That mindset is so hard. And also the other thing is that I love that you said was that when you ate a certain way, you felt better, because so many people, the first time they meet with me, will say, well, how often can I cheat? How many cookies can I have in a week? And that mindset is, I don't want to give that up. Like you want to jump on the boat, but you have one foot on the dock and one foot on the boat. And sooner or later you have to do the splits, right? You have to make a decision.
Yeah, you have to make a decision, but I can't tell you how good I feel. And see, because I don't eat any junk food, and I haven't for a while. I don't. I mean, I had a square inch of my birthday cake that I made for my guests, but that was it. It just doesn't taste good. So so when I do that, I just don't feel good. If I eat too much, I don't feel good.
So was your focus really on feeling better? It wasn't like what you had to give up. You were looking to see what you could
I was
get.
looking at what I was gaining.
Yeah, exactly.
I looked at what I was gaining. I was gaining health. I was gaining so much freedom. I was gaining confidence. And it just kept magnifying. And how much better can it get?
When did you first look in the mirror and say, I'm a good person, they were wrong about me? When did you first really realize that?
Probably about 66. I had been taught to do this, but I actually didn't incorporate it until after I became a life coach and pulled in those skills that I learned to question. And because, I mean, if your mother doesn't love you, what does it matter? I mean, that was what I was thinking. And and
How did you feel about yourself when you were a professor at Harvard, reaching the pinnacle of being a professor?
well, I wasn't teaching fellow, but I was teaching. So yeah, I said, my God. I mean, it happened again. like most things in my life, they happened because of a fluke. It happened because one day I visualized teaching at Harvard, and then it came through the back door. It's what everybody would tell you to do to get to teach at Harvard. I got in the back door by knowing somebody who worked for the dean, and they had somebody die, and I was the immediate replacement. So,
But what do you think about visualization? I mean, do you think that's something when you visualize yourself a certain way that brings to that to be?
you have to believe. Okay, so you visualize it, you see it, you give yourself about 3 scenes to work out in your head, and then you believe you have it, and then you just get out of your own way and let it come to you. And I didn't think about it after I visualized. It was I was teaching at a community college, and I was frustrated with my students that day. That was the impetus for the dream. So I just said, what would it be like to teach at Harvard? And so I visualized, and I visualized guys with football shirts on that said Harvard. Okay, can you see it? Harvard. They all had Harvard shirts on, so I knew I was at Harvard. And the particular group of students I was hired to teach were the football team. You want to laugh. I went in there they all are in their Harvard, well, not all of them. Some of them were hockey players too, and a few women. But I got to teach the teams because they needed different times. And I just had a ball. I had a ball teaching them. It was great. And the resources of Harvard, who really taught me how to teach case method, and some of the other things built my teaching skills. It was just wonderful. Yeah, I've been visualizing on certain things my whole life. I just haven't not integrated it into every area, but you know, that's what I do. And
Yeah, that's great. And like, if you go back, what advice would you give yourself now, going back to your 12-year-old self? What would you say now, knowing what you know?
relax, relax. You don't have to work so hard.
Yeah, because you were a hard worker too, and you provided you know, and all those things you go through all those years, and that's the other thing. It's hard to say relax. So in the U.S. culture, we think if you relax, you're lazy and you can't get things accomplished. You know.
So you just have to have different mind tricks for achieving things. And as you learn the tools of, setting an intention as to how to show up every day, and setting some goals, to just visualize and it draws it to you, but you can never doubt yourself. I would teach my students to visualize, and I said, never get the case of the yeah buts, like a rabbit with a, yeah buts, yeah, yeah, but my mother won't let me. That's a yeah but. Or my Toyota is a perfectly good car. Yes, it is. That is true. And you want a BMW. What is it? And the structural tension will always go toward the vision. So
Yeah, and I think when you say yeah, but I hear that people say I started to eat healthy, but my husband brought food home, or my friend, when I go to this meeting, they always have pizza, and I couldn't not have it.
Yep.
And it's such a hard thing because we were, I read something somewhere that said, it's something to the effect that people who don't when you stop using excuses, you no longer have need for them, right? When you start saying, hey, look, I got to take responsibility, and that's a hard thing for us to really focus on
in our society today too, taking responsibility and not giving excuses. Give an explanation if one is necessary, but not an excuse, because then you let yourself off the hook. Hold yourself to the standard, and you realize you're human too, but don't make excuses. My mommy wouldn't let me, don't do that. And
yeah, don't sell yourself short. That's what you were saying too, is believe in yourself even if other people don't. So you kind of start realizing a lot of people have an opinion that may not be correct, right? Until they know you better, until they know you personally. And I think it's an amazing, I see that on Twitter or social media, where people attack someone like you lose 100 pounds. They go, oh, look, you have loose skin. Oh, what about this? And they criticize rather than saying, oh my gosh, how many people in the world have done what you've done?
Yeah. And it's You know, so many of the tools I learned in coaching school, I really used a lot later. And I am a level 3 certified coach with the Fearless Living Institute. And God, the things that uh, we don't, digress a bit. We don't come in with tools as to how to behave. And some very valuable things we were taught: not to make excuses, have expectations, complain, or put ourselves down. You try working with those. They're really, really insightful. And I listened to how much I put myself down, how much I complained, which is a complete energy waste. Looking at my unreal expectations of other people, but especially myself, and excuse making. And and then you learn tools to stop the anger and to stop the acting from your emotions rather than your values.
Yeah,
And
and the negative self-talk, right? That is such a
oh, it is
huge thing for so many people where it's like, I can't do anything right. I'm a klutz. I can't, instead of saying, hey, we can change this, and I'm amazed by that, how negative people are in their own brain. I think that I saw a study of how frequent it's unbelievable how many times we tell ourselves we're not worthy in a day.
well, we had an assignment in coaching school where to actually to write acknowledgments for ourselves about what we accomplished. Well, basically what we were proud of and what was a little difficult to do if you took a risk. Like one day, and I was in California when I did this, only because nobody knew me. I was up in just north of San Diego and at a spa, and I had to sing karaoke. Now I can't sing, and I had to do karaoke. So this guy just dragged me on the stage. I think that's what it took. And together we sang Wild Thing, You Make My Heart Sing. And you just, all of a sudden they got animated, and really, we had a really good time. And I said, geez, I'll do that again. And now I'm doing Werewolf of London and howling in it. And so I took these really emotional risks and did that. And it opens up things. So
Yeah, it's funny. And it's funny you say that because a lot of us don't want to take the risk. We don't want to be the silly person, but we've all been to the wedding and some guy doesn't know how to dance and he's overweight and he's out there having a blast. And he's having fun and enjoying his life rather than sitting back on the chair like we are doing nothing and saying, why is he out there doing that? Well, he's having a good time and enjoying life, right?
yeah, it's exactly it. It's taking those psychological risks. And I digressed a little bit, but that also feeds into you challenge the perceptions people have. And are they right? No. It's one person's thought, and what's it based on? Opinions based on facts. That's
It's
fine.
amazing. What you're saying is so amazing because I know people in their 60s and 50s that their dad said they would never amount to anything. They'd be a loser. And it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy their entire life. Or they had to prove to everyone that they were more successful. They have a better car. They have a bigger house. And they're still miserable people, and to have that on your shoulders all this time is really tough.
Yeah, it's things don't buy happiness, nothing. But in a roundabout way, it's you start somebody where they are, and I use all my coaching tools on them, and I really enjoy doing the coaching and empowering. But I had to go through the whole coaching program and be coached myself, so I know what it felt like.
And you've been there, done there, not to have self-esteem and all that stuff. And,
And
to tie back into that. So
yeah,
a lot of us who struggle in life with self-esteem or being shamed or whatever it is, food has become a comfort for us,
oh
right?
yeah,
So how do we now say, how did you go from food being a comfort to saying, okay, I'm going to use this as nourishment and try to make myself healthier? Not, how did you forgo that sudden, like, I want cookies right now, and stay on path?
well, it would never be cookies because actually I'm not attracted to sweets, but it would be potato chips.
Yeah,
It
I'm
would
with
be
you.
popcorn. I go for the greasy salties, or it would be bread or the savories. And no, that's what I use to calm my feelings, both good feelings and bad feelings. And it still happens every single day. It is an addiction. It is one day at a time. And I have tools in place for doing that. For example, just asking myself, what do I really want? It's not hunger. It's not physical hunger. It's comfort. And every snack is a cheat, and every snack is an emotional event.
Yeah, it's Rob Sivas.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's
He
correct.
ruined it. Yeah, it's an emotional event, and you just say
An emotional event, and I was an emotional eater from age 7 on, when there was sexual abuse, and my mother wouldn't believe me, and I got beaten within an inch of my life. And the person that did it was just going on about his business, and nobody believed me. And that's when I became an overeater.
and that's very common, but it's not necessarily the rule, but it's very common. You'd be surprised at how often then part of it is being overweight, then people aren't attracted to you as much, and then you don't have to worry about the unwanted sexual advances and things like that.
But I never got heavy till I was 40. And well, a little bit in high school, but not much. But these things have to be dealt with. And so it is the thing I would do naturally. And I run to the refrigerator. I open the refrigerator about 7 times a day and don't eat. And I just say, what are you doing? What do you really want right now?
Yeah. And are you sad? Are you bored? Are you tired? Are you, what is it that you need? And I think that is such sage advice, really, you know?
Just open the refrigerator, and I have on my refrigerator the fattest picture ever taken of me when I was in China. And just reminds me that you can open the refrigerator, you can look, but you cannot eat unless it's mealtime.
Wow, that's something, and keeping yourself accountable and realizing why you're doing it, and a lot of us forget about our journey. We kind of get lazy along the way somewhere, that
yeah, it's human, and that's where we give ourselves some grace here. And then again, I go in, I pour myself either a seltzer or a glass of water, or make myself a cup of hot tea, and then I go in and enjoy it. So,
and I want to come back to one other thing. I know in passing we discussed this, but being abused as a child, did you ever find forgiveness for that person, or did you move on, or how do you now, at your point of life, do you say, I'm not going to let them ruin my life anymore?
Well, is it the person, or is it my parents and how I was treated? But my parents are gone. They can't hurt me anymore. I have no idea where that person is. They moved out of the neighborhood very shortly after that. And I don't know, but I can't keep one thing that happened when I was 7 years old to run my life now, because I was analyzing it from a 7-year-old brain, which, isn't the wisest person. And, I will never forget it. Let's just say that. And
you realize it wasn't your fault, right?
Oh God, it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
I was a 7-year-old child. And no, it was not my fault. And I know that. And I know that in my core. And I have really chosen, with this borrowed time or this extended time I have to live, that I'm going to do it with joy, and I'm going to do everything I want to do. I'm still waiting to hear from the Rolling Stones, because I want to sing back up with them. That'll happen.
Yeah, they might be a little bit older than you. I'm not sure these days.
They are older than me, except for one of them. One of them is born in 1947, like me. Ron Wood, yes, he's my age. But
wow.
The rest of them are older. And Mick has had heart surgery. So anyway, they're touring.
Look at you. Yeah, I think it's just
out there.
Who knows?
In the ethers. So
yeah, when it happens, you can send us the video.
Yeah, I know. The universe knows. if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. I just, it's been loads of years since I've been to a Rolling Stone concert. And Mick always sings just to me. And I think every woman in the audience feels the same way. He's that good. So, but I've always wanted to do that with my horrible voice. And yeah, I just have a couple bucket list items, and several of them have been crossed off in the last years.
That's great. It's great.
One of them was, to do podcasts, and this is my fourth. So I'm really, really very excited about it. And
yeah, I'm sure there'll be many more to come, because your message is going to resonate with a lot of people.
I hope so, because sharing it is a very powerful thing, because I'm risking, putting my whole self out there, and most of my good friends don't know my whole story. And so it's really helping me. It's helping me clarify it. And I got a lot of positive feedback on especially the last one, which was yours, and your other with you and Tro, and a lot of older women have contacted me.
Yeah, it's great. I know, because I tell people, listen, I said, listen, I told 2 people today, listen to her story before you give up on yourself. Listen to her story, and your story is absolutely astounding. Of what, like Tro said, is you've overcome adversity your entire life, and you go through these things that a lot of people just fold and they're done, and they just give up. When you have heart surgery when you're 65, you go, okay, my life's over pretty much. But then
it wasn't.
Yeah, and it wasn't. And you're looking at bucket list stuff still, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to be around and do these things. And so I have to ask you, because this is life's best medicine, what's life's best medicine for you? What's something now, if you were in the situation where when you were 65 and you're going through a major surgery, you may not live, what would you tell people who ask you, like, what really matters, what's important after your journey? What is it that you've gained, or something that you say, this kept me going, or this is what really matters?
The Beatles were right. Love and connection. And with that, you need to do a little bit of an assessment on what you're attached to that no longer serves you, and pull the plug on it. So this is Robert Fritz from Boston's idea. He said, imagine that you have 100 plugs, cords leaving your body, and you need 70% of them. You need 70 of those to survive. Who do you give the other 30 to? Who do you attach to? And it gives you time to kind of figure out what's important to you. Where do you give your money? What charities do you contribute to? What people do you attach to and value and you're there for? And realize if you need to keep 70 for you to keep you functioning, you got to be very careful about where you put those other 30 cords. And I've been doing that, and then things change also. So now the world is returning to a little more normality, and I'm off with my Simply Snackin' samples to eat on the plane, and to make sure I have some for Dan and for Jackie so they can enjoy them over in England. So I'm a happy girl. I'm doing wonderful, wonderful things for myself. And I'm so excited that I'm going to England in 3 weeks and meeting the low carb people over there. So my life is got full of color, and it's full of adventure, and it's just I'm choosing to live, and I've defined to myself what that living is. And life is good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure Simply Snacking is not going to hurt, not like that promo that you gave them. I appreciate that.
Oh my God, love it.
They're good people, and they believed in me when this was starting out and kept me going, because I had a vision of this sharing stories like yours so that we can help other people. I mean, really, my vision is to help people that have given up hope. They think the world's never going to get better, that it's just darkness and there's not good people out there. When they hear your story, I think that's, your story and so many others. I mean, I can say this over and over. All of my guests bring something to the table that's unique, that's really important, that can help someone along the way.
Yeah. And it's all about giving back, but giving back in a way that I really value. Yeah.
So also, when people want to track you down, how do they find you? I know you're on stuff that I'm not even on. I'm too old to get on Instagram and all that. So I have to. You already told me I have to do that.
He's old enough to be your mother, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook under my normal name, JoAnn McManamy, and I'm beginning to learn Twitter, and it's Dr. McManamy on Twitter as well. So.
And we got McManamy down. That's a hard one. I practiced. I'm so disappointed. I tried it and I listened back to the old podcast and I got it right. Then I got under pressure with you. You made me nervous with your blue eyes there. It got me stressed out. So it's so great to see you laughing and what you're doing and the hope you bring to people. So thank you so much. Blessings. Thank you for joining me, and just thank you for your wisdom and all the once you sing behind the Rolling Stones, we'll be able to bring you back on and talk about that experience. But no, thank you so much, because you give me hope and you give my patients hope. And this is one I'll say, go listen to this one. This is the important stuff in life, people, because I see so many people and it saddens me that their focus on what matters in life is having six-pack abs, or driving the nicest car on the street, or having the biggest house, or having the most awards behind their name type thing.
No, I chased that game. I realized as an educator I would never be making the big salaries, but no, that's not it. It's the love and it's the connection.
I think that's it. Relationship, love, connection, impacting others like you're doing. That's what it's about ultimately, because that's what's going to outlive us at some point.
Yeah. I hope we can leave a legacy of some sort.
So everyone, you were gifted with a bunch of wisdom today. I think you'll want to listen to this one a couple of times and go back and hear what the good doctor here is saying. And also, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, give yourself a break. Don't listen to the negative self-talk. Don't listen to what people told you when you were a kid that you couldn't accomplish, because you can. It's just taking those steps, and sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone, doing karaoke, and maybe I'll dance at the next wedding. My wife will probably hear this and make me go out and dance with her, because she can dance really good, and I'm a little cursed in that area.
I challenge you to do that.
I will do that. I think I have a wedding coming up pretty soon, so I will do that. We have a bunch of weddings, actually. We're traveling to weddings all summer, it sounds like. So I'm going to take that opportunity. Hopefully no one here listening to the podcast will videotape or anything, and I'll just go have fun. And how's that? So.
I'll just ask you if you did it.
All right. And I'll ask you about the Rolling Stones.
Oh, well,
Thanks again for joining me. Hopefully we can get this out soon so everyone can hear it.
Okay.
And thanks for the plug for Simply Snacking. They'll love it. And I love them, and they're doing some great stuff, and we can stay healthy and eat their things. What's your favorite flavor, by the way?
Oh, I love the new teriyaki pineapple.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried it. I'm kind of a plain Jane. I do the low carb versions of, the lowest carbs what I'm trying to do, but maybe my anniversary is coming up. Maybe I'll have the teriyaki pineapple.
I like that. I like some of the beef flavors.
And the beef ones. That's I'm biased at the.
Yeah. I like the beef flavors better than the chicken, but
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Good. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll chit chat after this. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.